Castle Delaware. Kind of an interesting little town. What was kind of neat about it is we were driving through almost everyday, common, current town in any city, USA. And then you make the corner into downtown to the historic area, and it's like you just hit a time warp going back into the 1700s. Newcastle was settled by the Dutch West India Company in 1651. In 1664, the English seized control of the area and named it Newcastle. The area was actually given to William Penn through the British Parliament in 1680. Pennsylvania actually gets its name from Penn, and it's actually Penn's Woods. Delaware actually separated from Pennsylvania in 1704 and was the capital of Delaware until after the Civil War, where it was transferred to Wilmington in 1881. Three signers of the Declaration were from Delaware: Thomas McKean, George Reed, and George Ross. We spent most of our time in the courthouse. This courthouse was built in 1732. The first courthouse was actually on this exact same site, and you can still see some of the original foundation. The original one was built in the 1680s. It burned down in 1729 during an attempted escape by some prisoners. This was Delaware's first court and state capital. During the Revolutionary War, the town pretty much packed up and left to Dover in 1777. And when the British came in, because there was virtually nobody in town, they didn't bomb it. There was no serious damage. The British just took it over and held on to it till after the Revolutionary War. If you ever look at a map and you see that the top of Delaware has this curve, nice smooth calculated curve at the north end of its boundary, it's actually a 12-mile radius circle from Newcastle. There's actually a rock monument just outside of the downtown area where that 12-mile radius was measured from. And that was actually measured by surveyors Mason and Dixon, the same ones that surveyed the famous Mason-Dixon line. So this courthouse was the scene of a lot of different things. Delaware was our first state, and this was the capital for it, so a lot of historic things happened in this courthouse. And I have to say that the gal that gave us our tour was extremely informative and a lot of fun. She had so much information about the area, about the courthouse, about the town. Really made the whole tour very interesting. So in West Virginia, we went to Harpers Ferry. This is a foot trail from the visitor center to the historic downtown. Years ago, we had come through Harpers Ferry on Amtrak on the train when we came to visit our daughter who was stationed in North Carolina in the military. just from the train, seeing the town, all the historic buildings, we really liked the area and wanted to come back. It's so pretty through here. This is where the Shenandoah River and the Potomac come together. Just a beautiful area. It actually used to be called Shenandoah Falls, and Robert Harper obtained a patent for the land from the Virginia legislature in 1751 and ran a ferry business there. Hence, when it was renamed, it became Harpers Ferry. West Virginia and Virginia were the same state until 1863, when West Virginia separated from Virginia. I found a little family history linking my family back to Harpers Ferry, as I have a great uncle that was in the Civil War, and he was with the 14th Volunteer Pennsylvania Cavalry and was stationed in the Harpers Ferry area. Historic downtown was a lot of fun. Loved the cool old historic buildings. So much history. And they've done a really good job of setting up a lot of the offices and buildings to what it would have been like in the late early 1800s. We didn't get it on video, but Robert Harper's original house that he built in 1782 is the oldest remaining structure in town, and it is still intact up by the church. In several of the shots you can see the church steeple. George Washington also visited this area during a trip in 1785. He would later have the Harpers Ferry Armory, the federal armory in the area, constructed here. The original foundation for the armory is still visible today, though the building itself burned down quite a while ago. As kind of a history buff, I just love these old buildings set up like they would have been, and see how people would have lived back then and what was available at the store. Just really neat how they had things set up. And other than the modern cars driving through town, it's like you got transported back in time. John Brown's Fort's kind of a neat little history spot. John Brown led a group that tried to take over the federal armory here in town, and they holed up in the old fire hall. It's been moved to its present location from just a few blocks away. And the story goes that he was captured by some Marines led by Army Colonel Robert E. Lee, and they stormed that old fire hall when he was captured. And just prior to his hanging, he predicted the Civil War was coming. He was hoping to seize the weapons from the armory and arm the slaves for an armed revolt. So the trail there is the Appalachian Trail and also the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal Towpath. It was kind of fun to walk on that, and it was really neat to see the trains go by. Part of the Appalachian Trail is actually on the train bridge over the river. And we were not on the bridge when the train went by, but what a kind of a neat experience to be that close to the train as it went by. And we only had one day to spend in Harpers Ferry. Kind of wish we had more. There was so much to explore there and see. Even during the quasi-off season, there was still a lot open and a lot of things to do. Now, a little information I did not know before we got to Harpers Ferry was that Meriwether Lewis, on contract through the government, came to the federal armory here to procure the equipment they needed for the Lewis and Clark expedition. And that frame you see there is they had built a breakdown collapsible canoe using those metal ribs in an attempt to have something like that on the expedition. Unfortunately, the tests were an utter failure and they never did take it, but it was interesting to see. So a lot of the firearms, hatchets, other equipment they needed, and trading articles came from the federal armory here in Harpers Ferry for their expedition. We really enjoyed exploring Harpers Ferry, and if I'm ever in the area again, I will go back.